Welcome back to another powerful episode of the Service First podcast, where we explore the power of putting a commitment to others first in business and in life. Join us as we sit down with industry leaders, entrepreneurs, and everyday people who are making a positive impact through their commitment to service. Get ready to be inspired, learn from the best, and discover how you too can put service first. Well, sweet man. Welcome.
Yeah, happy to be here.
Yeah, I've been looking forward to doing this one for a while. I know we've been kind of out of pace on podcast recording for the past few weeks since we got back. But yeah, excited to do it. Yeah,
no, I've been really enjoying listening to the last few podcasts, and I think you guys are doing a great job, and I'm looking forward for my turn.
What's like stood out to you so far? I'm just curious.
It's really just cool to, have an hour with these people that I've worked with the last few years and actually really see their, past and their experiences and things that they've done within the company and outside the company that, really only comes out through an hour long sit down face-to-face conversation.
Is there anybody that stands out to you as like someone you would want to hear from that we haven't already interviewed?
I don't know. I guess not right off the top of my head, but I'm gonna have to think about that a little bit.
Okay. Well, yeah, man. I like you've heard with the other episodes. I mean, this is intended to just kind of be, a place to kind of get to know you a little bit. I've had already like a bunch of unsolicited feedback from staff members that I think's really cool, where they're saying, hey, just listen to Art's podcast or listen to Avery's or whatever, and it's cool to get to, just like you're saying, get to learn about people. So that's kind of what we hope to get out of these things, and understanding why you do what you do and what brought you to the team and all that stuff. So yeah, I mean, I guess, for starters, just, take us back and like to just kind of hear about your background, where you're from, your upbringing, your family life, and, eventually how you got started in the restaurant business.
Cool. Yeah. I was born in Fort Bragg, North Carolina. I was a military brat. My dad was in the Army, retired as a full bird colonel, and my mom was in the Air Force. She was a nurse. They met in Fort Bragg, and so I kind of just lived the military brat life for the first few years. We lived all over the place. Spent some time in South America for about a year and a half in La Paz, Bolivia, and then we moved to Oregon, where my dad finally retired, and I say finally, I was 5 years old, which is pretty unique. And he always wanted to live in Montana. He spent a lot of time training out here when he was in the Army. So we settled in Stevensville, Montana, which is a small town south of Missoula. And grew up there from when I was 5 until I left when I was 18 to go to college, which was a pretty special experience. My parents were both retired, so they were always around. It was a lot of time spent traveling the summer times, outdoor activities, all through the year, which was pretty cool. Work-wise, started working at a young age. I started working at 12, mowing lawns around my neighborhood and doing a bunch of like manual labor jobs. And then I guess my first like official job was as a ski instructor at Lost Trail, which is a small ski resort. Started doing that at 14, and then I was rolling newspapers on the side, just kind of making money, enjoying what I was doing. The ski instructor thing wasn't really a job at that point, and it was pretty fun. And that evolved into snowboard coaching in Mount Hood, Oregon in the summer times. And when I got into college, my jobs were more customer service oriented. So I worked at some ski shops out there in Helena, Montana. And then I guess when I was about 19, I had a friend that was working at McKenzie River Pizza as a server. I was loving it. he was working, 5-6 hour shifts, making really good money. Enjoyed the customer service aspect of it, and kind of pushed me to go apply for a job there, which I did. And they didn't have any serving jobs at that point, and so I started as a dishwasher and pizza delivery driver, which was pretty glorious. When I was in the restaurant, I was cleaning dishes, and when I'd get a call for a delivery order, I'd
really?
load
You're
up.
doing both simultaneously?
I was doing both at the same time.
That's awesome.
There was two of us, and it was just like, sometimes we were both gone for 3 hours at a time, so we'd get back and have this giant stack of dishes, and it was like chaos at the end of the night, getting everything cleaned up, and I'd go home smelling fantastic and have a little bit of money in my pocket, so it was all good. But I had a pretty awesome manager there at that point in time that, he told me like, hey, well, this is what the job we have right now. If you kill it, kind of get an understanding of the restaurant, we can move you up pretty quickly. And so I would say it was probably 6 months in that I finally kind of moved into a serving position there. Didn't have any idea what serving looked like, or what steps of service were. The importance of understanding a menu is kind of just baseline. This manager's name is Casey, kind of took me under his wing, showed me the importance of customer service, kind of going the extra mile for the customer whenever you can find those opportunities to do that, how to upsell, how to team serve, and yeah, that's kind of how I got the start in. It was from there, and then graduated college. Didn't really want to stay in Helena. I had some friends out here in Bozeman, and I got a job at the airport here as a server, and was really the only like serving job available at that time, which was kind of crazy. So I went in, and it was super high turnover restaurant, busy, and it was like it'd be busy for an hour and a half and then it would be dead, and then it would be busy for an hour and a half and then it'd be dead. And so like you knew when your rushes were, and when they came, it was big time. And that's really where I guess I was able to learn how to serve in a high volume restaurant, and kind of sharpen some skills. There wasn't much customer service orientated in that position, because it was like you'd see these people once and never see them again. And so that was like an aspect that I missed. But I was working there with Sean Lawrence, who's one of our managers now, Britt Murphy, who was one of our servers. She managed a little bit here. Ty Slater, one of our bartenders. And Britt was from Jackson, knew about Blue Collar Restaurant Group, knew about the reputation, knew you guys personally as a family. And as soon as Sidewinders popped up, she's like, I'm gone. I'm going to go work for these people. And I was a little late on the hiring spree, and so I kind of hung out at the airport for a while just to kind of see how things were going over here before I jumped on board. But Ty came over, Sean came over eventually, and it was pretty cool just to have like, a team of people that I already worked with to like kind of just transition in. And got with Blue Collar and haven't really looked back since.
When you were growing up in Stevensville, pretty small town, were you guys going to restaurants and stuff a lot when you were a kid?
Yeah. We didn't eat out a ton. My dad enjoyed cooking, but the options are a little limited in Stevensville. It's kind of funny though. It's like when we first got there, it was like 2 restaurants, and then when I was in high school, it was like the Bitterroot Valley is it's a string of small towns south of Missoula that are connected. Pretty much each one is 7 miles away from the other one. Stevensville's had about 2,000 people in it probably at that point in time. And it kind of turned into this like mecca of restaurants when I was like in high school. And so we had like a fine dining restaurant, we had a pizza place, we had a burger spot, we had another pizza place, we had like a grab and go burrito thing going, and then like Stevensville Cafe, which is like this old classic, cafe, small town cafe. And so it was kind of interesting to see that evolution. So like all of a sudden we had some choices. We had 2 breweries, and it's like none of them I think were doing great. They weren't super full, but I think it was just too much competition in one area,
Yeah.
and so they've come and gone as time has come. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I guess my interest in the restaurants was more so. It wasn't really evolved around the food. It was I liked, the high pace atmosphere. I liked, customer interaction, getting to know people, meeting regulars, nailing a busy service with a group of people that's all working together just to, sometimes just survive.
And it was really your buddy that was working at McKenzie River that kind of got you connected there, and you're just seeing him make good money as a server and stuff. So that was kind of what attracted you to the industry in the first place.
Yeah, I think originally it was probably dollar signs more than anything. Yeah. And I had to work my way into those dollar signs.
Yeah, it's funny when I sat down with Sean, it was like that, and he got free cheesy bread.
Yeah. I mean, that was a big perk too, but being in college.
My first restaurant job was at a pizza place too, actually, here in Bozeman, and it was kind of the same deal. Like I worked there with my brother. We had some other friends. There was a good network of people that all worked together and stuff. And it was like, yeah, I think I made like $10 an hour or something rolling making pizzas, and but got to go home with like a large pizza every night. So that was cool.
Yeah.
Made it worthwhile. So I want to touch on like coming from a military family. Both of your parents. Talk a little bit about what that was like for you as a kid. I know you said they retired when you were 5, but obviously that had lasting impact on just your family culture and you and just one brother. Is that right?
Yep. So I have one brother. He's about a year and a half older than me. He's in the Army as well. And yeah, I mean, growing up, it was a little different, I think, than most people. Having both parents having a military background. My mom she didn't retire until I was like, I guess probably 15 years old. So she was in the National Guard, and then she was also like a civilian nurse. So she had a little bit of civilian influence in her career. My dad didn't have any. He was drafted at 18 years old. And so like growing up with that, a lot of the people that we were surrounded by were military people. My dad had a lot of friends that retired into the Valley as well. And so I guess to take a step back, I don't have like any extended family in Montana. And so like those people really like became like my aunts and uncles, and which is awesome. I mean, that it was a bond that was formed between my dad or my mom, as long as family goes back, years and years. And so it's a pretty interesting upbringing in that respect, but I didn't have much exposure to like civilian life from my parents. My dad tried, he'd meet people in the community that owned a business or were doctors or whatever, and have us sit down and kind of figure out what we wanted to do. The military for me and my brother wasn't like what we had to do, but I think due to our exposure, that's what we thought like the logical next step was. So my brother, he went into ROTC here straight out of college at MSU. Did about a year and kind of figured out like school really wasn't for him, and so he kind of just went up and ended up in an enlisting pretty much right after I graduated high school. And then for me, it was like I wanted to go to college. I didn't really know what I wanted to do at that point in time, but it was like the military route was there. That had great benefits, so I ended up going into ROTC 2 at Carroll College in Helena. Didn't have a scholarship right off the bat. Got pretty rocky start with that because I ended up having wrist surgery like 2 weeks before going to college, and so I'm fighting for a scholarship with a cast on my arm, which was a pretty cool experience. But yeah, I mean the military thing it's ingrained in me. It's I think my leadership style is kind of based off of that structure as well.
Yeah, just having those people like your dad and his friends as mentors
Yeah,
for you growing up.
absolutely. And still now, I ask them questions all the time.
Right.
So,
Yeah, what do you think are some of the key things that you learned from those guys, or how they impacted your leadership style?
yeah, I mean, obviously from like the military leadership style, it's definitely like a people first mindset. And so really figuring out ways that I can take care of my employees and make their lives easier is more important than what I have to go through to make that happen. That's probably the biggest thing, the structure of being organized, because if you're not organized, you're going to miss those chances to make that impact on your people too.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, for them to know who they can go to and who can help solve their problems, is that what you mean?
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly.
What did, like, when you say that you knew that you wanted to go to college, what was it about the college education, or was it specifically Carroll College? Like, why were you so motivated to do that?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it was more that point in time. It was kind of, just after the college boom, where it was like you go to high school, you go to college, you get a
Just the
degree.
expectation.
Yeah, you get to make the next move. And yeah, I mean, I didn't really know exactly what I wanted to do. I felt like it was the next logical step. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, I was a business major. So I got a business administration degree, and my areas of emphasis were marketing and economics. And yeah, I mean, at that point, I was more, for the first couple of years, I was more focused on the military than school. I was still getting good grades, but that's what I thought my next logical step was at that point was, I got 4 to 6 years at least in the military. And so I was focused on that and getting a scholarship and moving on, and things ended up not.
Yeah, so touch on that a little bit if you want to. I mean, what was the experience like for you? What was life like going through the time when you ended up realizing that the military wasn't your future?
Yeah, I mean, it was a pretty crazy experience. So I went in without a scholarship. I knew it was something that I wanted, so I worked my butt off and had a cast on my arm for like 6 months starting out. Figured out anything that I could do to kind of raise myself to the level of being a scholarship cadet. And it was funny at times. We would do field exercises and everybody else would have like a fake M16 they're running around with, and I couldn't carry that much weight at that point in time, so I'm running around the woods with a stick and like doing whatever I got to do. And so it's kind of a joke to some people, but it's like I could run.
Yeah.
So I could, couldn't do push-ups, so I didn't have to do that, but I was still kept myself in physically good shape, so when I came out of it, I could bounce back quick and be competitive, got good grades, and quickly became kind of a leader in the freshman class, got a scholarship, and that kind of knocked things up pretty quickly on like opportunities that you can do within ROTC. And so I ended up being picked for this like cultural immersion trip to Vietnam, and I was like teaching English to Vietnamese army officers, and that was like one of the hardest things I've ever done. I didn't know how to speak Vietnamese. These guys didn't know how to speak English.
You weren't a teacher.
I wasn't a teacher.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So it's like, how do we do this? And nobody in our group knew how to speak Vietnamese. And so it was like a week of like trying to like paint pictures and show them what a tree looks like and say, this is a tree. And it was super fun. And it ended up like everybody learned a little bit of Vietnamese and everybody learned a little bit of English, and that was pretty cool. But yeah, I ended up getting in a little trouble on that trip, and there was a gal that was with me in that trouble that ended up having an accident and breaking an ankle, and that kind of, it took a while, but ended up ending my ROTC career. So, in military opportunities.
Right.
So at that point, I kind of had to quickly change gears into civilian life and
Yeah.
move through that.
That had to be pretty tough when you've got kind of your mind set on something, and then, you know, for whatever reason, whether it was your fault or not,
Yeah.
it just ends up being, you know, kind of swept out from under you.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, I mean, I think it was a very formative thing that happened for me as well. You know, it made me kind of get my shit together pretty quickly, you know, and kind of figure things out, you know, and it looking back, failure is something from that point on that, like, I didn't really look down upon. I kind of appreciate, really. You know, I think you learn the hardest lessons in those, like, darker days.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I don't regret anything that happened. You know, if I would have could go back, yeah, I'd probably change a couple things, but it was still a pretty big experience for me. So
Yeah, I mean, I think that's huge, man. Like, I think for most people, you know, being able to respond positively and constructively to failure, to obstacles in your life, I mean, it's something that I think as humans we just naturally will struggle with. So even, you know, at a young age, like 19, 20 years old, you were, you know, faced with a big obstacle for sure, you know, what you could call a failure. But, you know, being able to look at that objectively and try to make the best of it, right? That's a hard thing to do, for sure. Understandably, you know, people struggle with that, and I think that's something that we see among our teams a lot too. Is like, you know, if people oftentimes are working in restaurants as kind of a stepping stone career, you know, stepping stone towards whatever they're working on outside of the restaurant. And oftentimes if those things don't work out, we see, you know, we've seen people respond positively to it, but also not so much. And I think that's a really important life skill and lesson that, like you said, you can only really learn if you actually have to experience and struggle through that failure yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I mean, it wasn't always like that, you know. It was at first, you know, obviously it's like I was just so down on myself. It's like we did all this work to get to this point, and you just boneheaded, you know. So but yeah, I mean, I think it's important, and yeah.
Did you, like, looking back at that time, what do you think, like, were there any people in your life or experiences that helped pull you out of that, you know, kind of downslide after, you know, you finished up with ROTC?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, my dad was crucial in that. He was the person at that point in time that I was like, felt like I disappointed. I guess before I really talked to him, I was like, he's going to be crushed. You know, don't have a father anymore is kind of what I was thinking initially. And yeah, I mean, right off the bat, he responded. He said basically what he said in the initial conversation is, I would have done the exact same thing. And so he kind of helped me work through that process. And I had a really good friend structure at that point in time that were a big part of that as well. And I mean, my headspace was not fantastic at that point in time, but I also was like motivated to like switch gears and just drive on. You know, I was a junior in college, and it's like, I just want to get through this and on to the next step. And so, yeah, I don't know. I think it was kind of a team effort at that point in time.
So you got through college, graduated with a business degree, And right away, like you mentioned earlier, you had some friends that were living in Bozeman at the time, and that's what brought you here.
Yeah, so my best friend from high school was out here. And I was spending some time, like my junior year, senior year of college out here on the weekends. And it was like, I don't know, it wasn't what I remembered Bozeman being. It was kind of blowing up a little bit. Mm-hmm. You still had the mountains. There was a lot of outdoor activities that were close by. And Helena was like this sleepy government town, and I was just like, I can't stay here anymore. I spent like half a summer there after college, and I was like, came out and visited my buddy 4th of July weekend, and he's like, you should just move out here. He's like, it doesn't seem like Helena's got much for you, and you're not enjoying it. And I was like, yeah, I was like, I need to find a place to live. I need to find a job.
You didn't have any jobs lined up after you graduated college or anything?
No, not really. I'd done a little bit of searching, but I was kind of more like gonna take like a gap year and just go have some fun. So it was more like the move here was more to like get some outdoor activities. I was interested in the outdoor industry. So like Sims was here, Mystery Ranch, a couple other Stone Glacier, Gore-Tex. And so I was like, I'm going to, dabble with that, see what kind of jobs are available. But I wasn't like motivated to just like jump right in.
Right.
Yeah. And so yeah, I came out here and it was more fun, but it basically told him like the 4th of July, I was like, if you can find me a place to live and I'll try and find a job, we'll figure it out. And like called me like 5 days later. He's like, got you a place to live. Get out
Back
here.
when it was easy to find somewhere to live in Bozeman.
I was like, oh, 2 weeks. I was like, great. And I was like, gone. And
Sweet.
So I actually started working at McKenzie River. It's kind of shady, but I was like, I had gotten a job at the Yellowstone Club, but I had like 6 weeks that I didn't have a job and I need a little bit of cash. And so I like was able to transfer here. They didn't have a serving job for me, but they were like, you can be a delivery driver, you can make pizzas. And so I was like, ended up like doing a little delivery driving, a little prep cooking, a little pizza making. And then I was like, the job started up at the Yellowstone Club. And so I was cleaning houses a few days a week and skiing and hiking and camping and doing all that for probably about almost a year, and then moved back into the restaurant industry
At the airport. And then, like you said earlier, there were people on staff at the airport that you got to know that ended up coming and working with us, and that was how that whole transition worked out.
Yep, exactly.
So between, all these different, work experiences in restaurants, like how do you think it's impacted the way that you operate now as a leader in a restaurant group?
Yeah, I've seen, I've had, starting out, didn't know much at McKenzie River. So I've seen that learning process through like not knowing anything and what it's like to be a new server and just go to a table, hey, how are you? Work through the steps of service, not give much customer service, be a little stressed and disorganized. And so like kind of learning that and the customer service aspect of it in a pretty well managed restaurant, but the airport was a little more fast and loose. It wasn't super well managed. We didn't really have any support. And so it was like seeing the other side of things and knowing that like the no support, fast and loose mindset is not the way to run it. You're just going to turn and burn through employees. And so coming here, it was like a breath of fresh air. Even working at Sidewinders, as busy as it was like I had a food runner, we had expos, we had bussers, and it's like I could just sit here and serve it and focus on service, and taking care of the customers, taking care of my team. And so I guess from like a leadership standpoint, knowing what worked best for me and being able to help, these new servers, these new bartenders kind of settle in and not have too much stress on their shoulders.
Yeah, I think, you brought up a good point, and turnover of staff, because how that burns people out because you guys are, I'm sure, making great money at the airport.
Oh, it's nuts.
But but it's like that kind of becomes well, there's other priorities that are more important, right? For the work experience, other than just how much
Absolutely.
money you're taking home.
Yeah, and it's just like the beyond that, money only goes so far. You don't want to like get off work every night just exhausted and
Right.
like strung out and have to wake up the next morning and go do it again.
Yeah. So how do you like implement that now with, our various restaurant staff and making sure that they're having a good experience? Like, what are the things that you think are most important, or that you hear from staff that are most important?
Yeah, I guess personally, like, if I'm not afraid to like, if I see those holes, there's sometimes when we can't run with tons of food runners and expos and that, and so taking it on myself to kind of be that support. And when I'm in the restaurants, I'm kind of more of like an extra set of hands, and so being there, seeing how the servers are like feeling, do they look stressed, what's going on, and just seeing what I can do to help out to make their job that much easier. I guess it's like what I can do is what I do, and then also like finding those holes. We got to adjust our staff from season to season, and knowing when to plug people back in and bring on more expos and bring on more food runners. And
I want to backtrack too a little bit, because when you first started at Sidewinders, you were waiting tables, and then you moved into bartending and bar management,
yep,
and then obviously on to what you're doing now. But like, I think one of the big challenges that a lot of people face, especially younger people, and the way that our promotion strategy typically works is promoting from within, putting responsibility on people's plates that they may or may not think that they can handle.
yeah.
Which was very much probably the case for you at the time. Like, what do you think enabled you as a young, maybe fairly inexperienced bartender at that time, to take over and like in a bar management, leadership role among a team of very experienced bartenders, people that have been doing it for a while, and then you've seen that happen with other people on our staff too, that have been able to take on those roles and lead effectively, even though they may not be the most experienced or the oldest or whatever.
Yeah. I guess personally, like for me, I've always been a person where I don't want to be comfortable. And so as soon as I start to get comfortable, I want more on my plate and more on my plate. And when I started bartending here, I didn't have a ton of bartending experience before that. Kelsey was the manager at that point in time. She was kind of starting to transition out. And so I had some beer knowledge. She was looking towards me to help her kind of do like a menu change. And I, was feeling pretty comfortable with bartending and my knowledge there. So I was like, I can take that on, And then, I don't know, that kind of just evolved pretty quickly into like looking at, issues that we have behind the bar and kind of, making that known and finding ways to like help Kelsey figure out how we could get through that. And then, once that transition happened, I honestly leaned pretty hard on Isaac right off the bat. And he was great and like bringing me up to speed. In like little things operationally, but also like the beer change. Like he was there by my side for the first beer change pretty much the entire time. And so it was like me and him working through that. And then after I got through that first one, it was like, I got this, I had a little bit of confidence under my belt, and I was able to kind of look more as like from like a manager level, like what areas do I need to focus on,
Right.
Staffing, cleanliness, inventory levels. You helped me a ton with pricing. I didn't know anything about that. I didn't know what profit margins were or anything before that point in time.
Yep.
And so, I don't know, I just think I had an eagerness to learn at that point in time. And for like those couple years, it was solely focused just on bar managing and going above and beyond. And it was a lot of work. I mean, it's kind of a hard job because you're working 5 days a week as a bartender. And so like mornings were spent doing the behind the scenes stuff.
Right.
Which I think at that point in time fit perfectly for me at where I was because I wanted to progress. But the way like I view my work week is like it's my work week. You know, I might get a little workout in the morning, but after that, I'm working. And so I was fine with like putting a few hours in before I had to go do an 8-hour bartending shift.
Yeah, you talked about like staying out of your comfort zone, that being a priority for you. I'm reading this book. It's like a daily installation of philosophy for parents. I've got a 1-year-old now, and just kind of like a daily message for dads in particular.
Cool.
And one of the recent passages was about epithets for your kids, which, basically like instilling values. And something along those lines was brought up in this passage about, curiosity or being a lifelong learner. And that can apply to a lot of different aspects of your life. It's not just learning at work, right? I mean, you want to learn new skills, you want to challenge yourself to experience new things and stuff, but that's definitely stood out to me as something that I want to instill in my kids, because I think I think that's been important to me over my life, and I think you probably feel the same way.
Yeah, absolutely.
But that's kind of like pushing you out of like your mental comfort zone. Like, so as soon as you get comfortable or you feel like you're an expert in one subject, just moving on to another one where you are a total beginner.
Yeah.
And that process over and over and over again, number one, it broadens your horizons. It makes you a more capable, individual, but it also just, gets you confident in approaching problems, where you're like, I've never been a bar manager before, but, because I've dealt with all these other, things, and I've taken on these other challenges in my life prior to this, confident I can say yes to that, right? And that's something that, I don't know, from my experience, like more often than I would have expected, people are like just unsure of being able to say yes to things because they don't have the confidence that they're going to be able to problem solve their way through it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't know. I think like, I almost embrace challenges, I think back to like being a kid and like the dinner table conversations, and my dad would always like mind over matter was like numerous nights.
Yeah.
It may be like 7 nights in a row that thing was said. And it's like, if it's not hard, it's not worth doing. And I think I've kind of embraced that from a young age going on, and I enjoy it, and I do want to continue to learn. And it's
when Ellie and I first met in high school, probably one of the common like conversational topics that came up as I got to know her parents and learning their family dynamic and stuff, was this phrase MT. And like Joe would always say that to all 3 of his daughters, and it even spread over into my family, and my mom would like joke about it because Joe would always tell my mom that she needs more MT, but like mental toughness, and how that can truly impact and drive so many things in your life.
Yeah.
And how like, if you just have the mental toughness to just say, yes, I'll figure it out. You don't have to have the answers. Like having the answers in advance makes things easy.
Yeah.
The toughness comes from not having the answers, whether it's at work or in athletics or whatever you're like pursuing in your life, and just saying, I don't know what the answer is, but I'm going to just keep working until I figure it out, which, those can be long processes sometimes.
Yeah. Sometimes it's not pretty.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think I bring up the opening process of Sidewinders here a lot because, in fact, I was just talking with Sean about this yesterday. I think Sean's moving into a new role here at Hachi, and and he's got a great perspective on it. He believes in himself. He knows he can take this on, but I know that's not an easy thing for him to wrap his mind around. And it was the same way for me. When we moved from Jackson to Bozeman, I mean, these were all new experiences. We had never operated a restaurant outside of Jackson. We had never opened a big restaurant like that. Built it from the ground up. I mean, there's so many like first time experiences going through that you absolutely have to have that mindset of just like, yeah, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm going to give it 100%. And I think as long as you approach it with that mindset and know that, like I told Sean yesterday, like you're not going to fail because you're surrounded by people who will support you, and failure is just, you shouldn't even really be considering failure. Because you will get through it. You will be successful in this one way or the other. Just a matter of time and patience and effort that you're willing to put into it. There were lots of things that I was totally unprepared for when we opened Sidewinders here, but saying yes to that opportunity was life-changing. I would not be where I am today. We wouldn't be sitting here having this conversation if I hadn't have said yes to that opportunity. And I'm not like boasting. I'm just saying that like it had to go out. You have to go out on a limb sometimes and just be like, yeah, I'm absolutely not prepared for this, but I can figure it out.
Absolutely. And like the things you learn through that process and learn quickly is super beneficial, and I completely agree. I mean, you can't be scared just because you don't know what it looks like.
Yeah, I mean, I think the natural tendency is for a lot of people to expect that, whoever's in charge, whoever's their supervisor, whoever owns the business or they're responsible is there to like provide those solutions. Which, sometimes that's the case, but oftentimes it's like, no, we don't like as a business owner, I don't know the solution to every problem. Like again, Sean and I talking yesterday about how we build Hachi to where it needs to be. I don't know what the solution is, but moving Sean into a general management role allows us to like leverage his resources to help solve that problem.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so that's part of like growth and development in an organization, is that as you want to do more, as you want to become more valuable to the team, you have to be more of a problem solver. You have to have more initiative. You have to have more confidence in your ability to say yes to things, even though you don't have the answers in advance.
And I mean, like the initiative, the problem solving, like after you take that first step, like you're going to have so much more experiences. Everything's going to turn up, everything just speeds up, and you're going to go through things that you would never have gone through without that, and learn lessons like so much faster and adapt and figure out, because it's not rocket science, but it is hard. And it's, you just kind of, I think, just embrace the process and not be afraid to learn and push yourself to that boundary.
And I think that speaks to like the types of people that are set up for success in those types of positions, at least in our business. We've talked a lot recently about how just because you're a good line cook doesn't mean you're going to be a great kitchen manager. Just because you're a great bartender doesn't mean you're going to be a great bar manager, and like management and leadership is just a different skill set than being a great operator in any one of these fields of our business. And the same can be said in lots of different organizations. Like the best players on a sports team typically don't turn out to be great coaches. Why is that? What is it about a personal philosophy or your personality that makes you, suited, like well suited for that position or not? Those are the types of things that, like, I don't know, I feel like we're constantly evaluating with team members that like say they want to take on more, or say they want to make more money or whatever it is. I think that historically we've looked at it like, yes, okay, you're a great server, maybe you can be a great front of house manager, but over time we're learning that you really just need to want to lead, and you need to want to take on those responsibilities and be out of your comfort zone in this environment. I'm not saying that like just because someone doesn't want to be a manager doesn't mean they don't like to be out of their comfort zone, but oftentimes it requires that willingness and sort of like leaning into the problems within the restaurant workplace. That's what I think we need for people to effectively come in, take initiative, problem solve, and I think that's what makes a strong manager in our company.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think a lot of people to like look at restaurant management as like the logical next step. Like I've been a server for 10 years, whatever it is, kind of getting burnt out on it. I'm going to start front of house managing. And it's like, you got to have that drive or it's not going to work out.
That's why I'm excited about like the programs that we have started implementing this year and trying to, really encourage people to look at working in restaurants, whether you're a line cook or a bartender or a server, whatever, that like trying to make these as sustainable as possible, that these can be career options for people. And if you're a really great bartender and that's what you enjoy doing, then don't feel like you have to become a bar manager or a restaurant manager because it's the logical next step. Like, let's make being a great bartender a career opportunity for people. And I think we're moving the needle in that direction for sure. Now that our staff are getting paid time off, people, we have a lot of people now that are 5+ year employees that are getting a month of paid vacation every year. That's pretty
crazy.
Awesome.
Yeah. I mean, it's unheard of in a restaurant, and I think it's going to make us that much stronger. I mean, before this, we didn't have a huge turnover issue. I mean, if you look at the amount of employees on that 5-year list, it's a decent amount of employees,
Sure.
And so I think it'll make it that much better. It's really cool. I'm really excited for it and to see the impact that these decisions are going to make on our staff.
Yeah, I mean, like you talked earlier about having kind of a team member oriented leadership style, going back to like, the influence from your dad and the military experience and how, kind of that taking care of your people or leaders eat last type of mentality. I agree with that 100%. And I think we're making strides in that direction for sure. And kind of putting our money where our mouth is when we talk about, things like taking care of your people and leaders eat last. But as we move forward and like where you're at in your career and with the organization, like what do you think success looks like for you and for where you and we collectively, are envisioning the path of this organization going? Like, think, 3 years from now, 5 years from now, like what does success look like if we continue to pursue those things?
I guess success, I mean, I don't know. I think it's honestly a pretty cool time right now. I thought that when I moved into this restaurant group, 6 years ago, it's like a growing restaurant group. And I think that we've kind of hit this point where it's like this system of just like regional management isn't going to work very well. And so right now I'm really enjoying like the process of like figuring out how we can like streamline procedures and policies and really allow for the growth that we want to make. So I guess like 3 years down the road from now, success would look like, like a happy, solid staff with low turnover. It would look like well-run restaurants that are profitable. That, it's one thing to keep popping up restaurants, but it's like, are they making money? Is that, because if they're not, we're not really doing our job.
Right.
And so I guess, strong operations throughout, and profitability, and being comfortable in this position, and I'm comfortable in it now, but I think continuing the growth and really challenging ourselves to see what we can manage as a restaurant group.
Yeah, so I mean, you feel like you're still like very much in the growth phase for your, personal development and your career, and also for the organization.
Yeah, and yeah, and I don't know if that'll ever change,
Yeah.
honestly. I don't never been in a position where I felt like, oh, this is 100% dialed. There's
Yeah.
always a little room for
Well,
improvement.
like you
here and
said,
there.
it's like, that's that mindset of pushing yourself out of your comfort zone. I mean, growth or change is uncomfortable.
Yeah,
It's easier to get established and run with what you got and say, you know, we're good from here.
yeah,
And I just don't think that's who we are.
yeah,
I don't know what that means necessarily, like what types of opportunities we're going to say yes to,
yeah,
but it's certainly going to happen.
yeah.
We are going to say yes to things for sure. God, I read this great Richard Branson quote recently, and I'm trying to remember it, but I'll just have to paraphrase it. But he's like basically saying that you can't say yes to every opportunity in business, and that's a good thing, because oftentimes the ones that you miss or that you say no to, they open up an opportunity for that next opportunity to come around, and oftentimes it's a better opportunity than the one that you missed or said no to.
Yeah.
And I think we're very fortunate to be in that type of position now, where we have opportunities that are flowing our way, and people want us to do things and open new restaurants and be involved in new projects and stuff like that. And we have the team to execute,
Yeah.
Whether it's stamping out a concept like Sidewinders, or, saying yes to new entrepreneurial stuff. I know that, we've talked about as a group doing more of the prior and less of the latter, and focusing on, stamping out proven concepts, which I agree with, but I think it also is kind of in our DNA and makes us a little bit of who we are, to be able to say yes and, think creatively and outside the box, and that it's not always as simple as just say, yep, that's a good place for another Sidewinders.
Right. I mean, yeah, I feel like, we pop up a couple more Sidewinders and Mary Piglets, it might get a little boring, and we need to, I'm not against, another new concept, but I just don't think that that's the answer for us now,
Yeah, it's funny to think about opening more restaurants somehow getting boring, but
Yeah.
that's but I know what you mean, and I agree. I mean, I love thinking about other opportunities, and like the fact that not everybody on our team is the right fit, or really that excited about being part of the Sidewinders.
Yep.
And so that's been a big part of my career path and development, is finding ways to create opportunities for people on our team that are invested and buying in and doing the right things. This restaurant that we're sitting in
Yeah.
was built, to create an opportunity for our team.
Yeah.
And I want to continue to do more of that too.
Yeah.
Because I think that's really important. Again, it's a big part of our DNA as an organization.
Yeah.
The event venue in Manhattan,
Right.
that's kind of built around an individual. Not to say that that's the only reason that we're doing it, but it's a big reason that we're doing it. And I think that does facilitate our growth. It facilitates our success as a company and who we are. So it's a win-win.
Yeah.
It's just a different path than saying buy into Sidewinders or
Yeah.
go find something else.
And it's a cool space.
Yeah, I'm excited for that
Yeah.
for sure. I was just out there a couple of days ago, and that's going to be another one that is probably going to, it's going to be a challenge to figure out for sure.
Yeah.
But I think that it has a ton of potential. Gets us exposed into a new market, a new segment of this valley, and just kind of another segment of the hospitality space too. We've talked about doing a lot of other things in the hospitality space. Whether it's a hotel or sort of a activity venue, things like that, that are similar, and where I think we're set up well to succeed in those spaces. But it's not as simple as just stamping out another restaurant.
Yeah, it's cool. I'm excited for it.
Yeah, me too. I also wanted to ask you too about like our customer experience right now. For people in Bozeman and Jackson, what do you think are the things that are most important to our customers, and the things that we should be investing more in, or trying to focus on as a restaurant group?
I don't know. I mean, I think our success in the past has been really the connections that our staff has made with the community and our regulars. Like, you look at Sidewinders, and we have, like, a lot of those people have been coming there for 5 or 6 years nonstop, which is crazy. I can't think of a restaurant that I've frequented for 6 years straight.
Yeah.
And the loyalty that's there, I think really speaks to what the staff has done to make those connections and continue to like go above and beyond for these customers. A pretzel's awesome, but I don't think it's the pretzel that keeps them coming back. But I guess that's hard to say. It's something I haven't thought about. Do you have like something that you're on the top of your mind as like in it?
I mean, I agree with that for sure. I think having consistent team members and a consistent, that makes it's a huge part of the experience. Obviously, we try to prioritize that, and that, our staff, our front of house staff are not just order takers. They're there to create connections and build those relationships with our customers. Because I agree. I mean, those people become our fan base. They become the ones who advocate for our restaurant to their network and say, "Oh man, you can't believe you haven't been to Hachi. Like, you got to go check it out, because make sure if Sean's behind the bar, like, you got to go have him make you a roll or whatever. And those connections are what differentiated an average experience from a memorable experience. Somebody that can come in here and take an accurate order, listen to what the server or what the customer says, ring it in properly, and deliver the food, that's great. But somebody who can make recommendations, and someone who understands the philosophy of the restaurant, and connect with the customer, that's what really brings them back. And I think we're in a space where people get attached to their favorite restaurants, and we are sitting on a bit of an opportunity at Hachi, and not to try to build off of anybody else's struggles, but we all hope the best for what's going on at Dave's Sushi and everything that they've been going through, but this is an opportunity right now, because there are customers who don't have their place anymore. And so if we're lucky enough that they come through the door to give us a shot, then we've got to try to make the most of it, and it has to be something different than just taking their order and delivering the food. So I agree with you. I think the staff is crucial. I think this goes back to why we're investing in our staff and the employee experience the way that we are. But I always want to be proactive on that, and taking input from people like yourself, and making sure that you're getting input from people on our teams, across the board. You know, we all want to be hearing that input to see what we can do to make this the best place to work. You know, we've been talking about that for a few years now, that our goal as a company is to be known as the best employer in each one of our markets, in Jackson and Bozeman, and
that transfers. And I mean, even before that was our goal. Like when I was like bartending at Sidewinders, it was a pretty regular thing for like customers to say, how do you like working here? And it wasn't because they didn't think like I really wanted, this is like a stepping stone job, like I'm just here to make some cash. It was because they were looking around the restaurants and everybody's smiling and working together and killing it. And it's like, it, you know, the customers see that, and I think that connects them to our brand more so too, because people want to see good employers and people taking care of their customers in the right way.
I know our management team in Jackson just watched this video yesterday. I'll share it with you if you haven't already seen it, but it talked about company culture and why that's so important, and like that word gets thrown around a lot, but like what really creates a culture and like why it's so important. And Joe sent out a message, I think it was last night or this morning, about how, you know, we want to give people the opportunity to understand and learn and buy into our culture, but if they've had that opportunity and are choosing not to, they need to go, because they are a detractor at that point. And you have to think about any organization. Like I think sports teams are great, you know, kind of analogies for what we do. And when you have that player on the team who's not bought into that team culture, we've all seen examples of that. It absolutely detracts from the team performance and, you know, what they're able to do, whether it's winning games or whether it's making a great customer experience in a restaurant. You know, and you're right, like that's something that we've absolutely had and built pretty well at Sidewinders, and why people walk in and they see smiles on staff faces and all of that, and that's authentic, and that's what helps make that a great restaurant. But we've also had restaurants in the group that haven't performed in that way at any given time, and so, you know, I think that in a weird way, you know, ensuring that we are not allowing those types of detractors to operate within our organization is how we maintain the culture. It's how we maintain a great employee experience, because nobody wants to work alongside those people. And then that trickles back to the customer experience. It's like, you know, if we're truly focused on employee experience, that's probably our most realistic and most effective way to impact the customer experience.
Because I think, like, I mean, brand and culture go hand in hand, but like if the employee isn't like buying into the culture, then there's a good chance that like the customer isn't going to buy into the brand. Because the experience isn't there, you know, whether it's the actual service or whether it's, you know, a not so well made cheeseburger that's coming out the door because the line cook just doesn't really want to be here. You know, this is just their job so they can go ski during the day. Or it's, you know, a watered down cocktail that's been sitting at the bar for 10 minutes because the bartender doesn't want to run it to the table because that's a server's job, you know. So I agree with that 100%. I think that's a great area of focus.
Yeah, I think so too. I think, you know, if I think about what success looks like for us as a team as we move forward, it's more of that. You know, it's more of looking at ourselves as leaders, our responsibility being like looking after and taking care of the culture, like nurturing the culture and knowing that the culture is a sum of its parts. And if we have those detractors on our team, our responsibility is to not allow them to detract. So
Yeah.
they either have to change their behavior
Yeah.
or they're off the team.
Yeah.
Because that's, we collectively set the culture. We decide what our values are and what's important to us. And once those decisions are made, that can guide, how we act on things and take care of issues moving forward.
Yeah.
As a restaurant group, we have our core values, and when we see people operating outside of those values or inconsistently with those values, we have to act on it, because we have to trust that our most valuable people and the most valuable components of our culture are there because they align with our core values.
Yeah.
So if we want to look after those people and do our part in taking care of them, we can't allow the detractors to be on the team, and operating inconsistently with those core values.
Yeah.
So I think just more of that, people like yourself who are strong leaders and capable at ideally changing people's behavior and getting them to buy into the culture. And if not, understanding that it's your role, it's your job to not allow them to negatively impact the work experience of our best people.
Yeah. Totally agree.
Well, yeah, man, I'm excited, to see how this year goes for you. We're getting ready to go through a big transition with Foxtrot to Liberty Burger. That's going to be a big change, something that I definitely want to talk more about as we go through that process and what the priorities are going to be. But I'm excited for that, excited for a busy summer, and thankful for all you do. So seriously, thank you.
Yeah, thank you too. I mean, I appreciate everything and I love working with you, and I'm looking forward to the future.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, cool.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Service First podcast. Join us on our mission to spread the word and inspire others to lead with a service first mindset by sharing this episode with your friends and colleagues. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to the Service First podcast on your favorite platform. We can't wait to connect with you and continue this important conversation about service, community, and leadership.